The sharp crack of the slap rang out across the reception hall like a gunshot. Conversations froze mid-sentence, the music stumbled to a halt, and 200 stunned faces turned toward the scene. My father's hand hovered where it had just struck my cheek. My mother let out a startled gasp, not out of concern for me, but for the attention the scene had drawn. "You ungrateful little brat," my father seethed, his face blazing with fury. "After everything we've done for you." I brought my fingers to my cheek, feeling the sting, and tasted the metallic tang of blood from my split lip. My lipstick was probably smeared, my makeup a mess, but that was the least of my worries. I was still trying to comprehend what had just happened. "My name is Victoria Chen. I'm 29 years old, and moments ago, at my brother James' wedding, my father struck me across the face because I refused to hand over my penthouse to the newlyweds. James and Anna need a proper place to start their life together," my mother had argued earlier, backing me into a corner near the dessert table. "Your penthouse is ideal. You live alone. Don't be difficult, Victoria." But that penthouse wasn't just a home to me, it was my personal achievement. I'd worked grueling 60-hour weeks for years as a software engineer to afford it. Meanwhile, James coasted through one failed business after another, comfortably living off our parents without a hint of shame. "I said no," I told her again, my voice calm despite the tension building in my chest. "That place is mine. I bought it. I maintain it. James and Anna can find their own home." That's when my father stepped in, his face flushed, likely from both the champagne and his overblown sense of authority. "This isn't up for debate, Victoria," he snapped. "Your brother is the man of the family now. He needs that space." The man of the family. Of course. James had always been the golden boy, even when he failed. His most recent failure, a flashy crypto startup, had imploded just last month, taking a few unfortunate investors' money with it. But somehow, I was the one being labeled selfish and unreasonable. "I said no," I repeated, this time firmer. "And if you bring it up again, I'm leaving." That's when he hit me. Now, as silence hung over the hall like a thick fog, everything became painfully clear. My mother's faux shock, my father's arrogance, and James, sitting at the head table, grinning like the cat that got the cream. Even Anna, his new bride, wore a smug little smirk that made my blood boil. It was as if this entire humiliation had been orchestrated for their satisfaction. I lifted my chin, locked eyes with my father, and gave him a cold, steady smile. "You'll regret this," I said, loud enough for the entire room to hear. "Every single one of you." Then I turned and walked away, heels clicking against the polished marble, leaving stunned silence in my wake. My mother's voice called out behind me, probably more concerned about appearances than what had just happened. I didn't stop. Once I reached my car, the tears came, but they weren't from heartbreak. I was livid, furious. After years of being the dependable one, the adult who never asked for anything, this was how they repaid me. By trying to rob me of the one thing I'd built with my own two hands, and slapping me when I refused. My phone buzzed non-stop as I sat behind the wheel. "Mom, come back inside. You're making a scene." "James, don't be dramatic, sis. Let's talk." "Anna, your brother needs that penthouse more than you do." "Dad, you're handing over the keys tomorrow. That's final." I turned off the phone without replying and started the engine. I wasn't ready to go home. Not yet. I needed to breathe, to think. Somewhere quiet. So I drove to the one place that had always felt like mine, a small cafe where I'd spent countless late nights coding, dreaming, building the life they now wanted to take away. When I walked in, the barista, Mike, saw my face and didn't say a word. He just brought over my usual coffee, setting it down gently in front of me. "Rough day." "My dad slapped me at my brother's wedding," I said flatly, surprised at how steady I sounded. "Because I wouldn't give them my penthouse." Mike's eyes widened. The penthouse you spent 3 years working overtime to buy? I nodded, taking a slow sip of coffee. Apparently, my brother deserves it more. After all, he's the man of the family. That's insane, Mike said, sliding a chocolate muffin across the table. No charge. You look like you need it. As the warm hues of sunset spilled through the cafe windows, I sat quietly, letting the stillness help me think. A storm had begun to stir within me, sharp and focused. My family believed they could corner me, pressure me into surrendering everything I'd built. They assumed I'd cave, like always, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. I opened my laptop with calm precision and got to work. First, I fired off emails, one to my attorney, another to my financial planner. Then came a series of code uploads to my private GitHub account. Lastly, I made a call. Remember that beachfront development we discussed? I asked my real estate agent the moment she answered. I'm ready to move forward. By the time I drained the last sip of coffee, the groundwork for my payback had been laid. They wanted to strip me of my home? Let them try. The version of me they thought they could control disappeared the moment my father's palm collided with my face. That chapter was over. Now it was my turn to write the narrative, and I intended to win. The next morning, they arrived at my building without notice. The doorman, already familiar with the chaos brewing, gave me a heads-up. My father barged in first, fury written all over his face, while my mother trailed behind, looking flustered. I greeted them at my door dressed for war, sharp blazer, heels, and my laptop tucked under my arm. Calm, composed, unshakable. Where are you going? My mother asked as I turned the key in the lock. We need to talk about yesterday. Work, I said without pausing. Some of us actually earn our own living. Watch your tone, my father snapped, gripping my arm roughly. After the way you acted. I pulled back instantly, my voice like ice. Touch me again, and I'll have security remove you. And just so you know, I have footage of what you did yesterday. The country club's security cameras caught everything. That shut them both up. My mother went pale. You wouldn't, she whispered. Don't test me. The elevator chimed. I stepped in and looked over my shoulder one last time. Change the locks all you want. I've already moved everything of value into secure storage. As the doors slid shut, their stunned expressions lingered in my mind. I exhaled slowly in my car, feeling the first real breath of freedom. Phase 1 was underway. Over the next several days, I ignored their escalating texts and voicemails. The tone shifted from pleading to guilt-tripping, then outright threats. James sent waves of mutual friends and distant relatives to talk some sense into me. Anna made snide, indirect jabs on social media about certain selfish people abandoning their family. I didn't respond. I focused on my work. What they didn't realize was that I'd been preparing for a moment like this, not exactly this, but something close, for years. I kept records. Every dollar I earned, every bill I paid, every cent that went into the penthouse. I had cameras installed throughout the property, encrypted backups of important files, and master access to every digital lock. And I had something even more powerful: information. For years, while playing the part of dutiful daughter, I had also been their unofficial tech support. I'd set up their email accounts, cloud services, home networks. I knew their passwords. I had access to their data, including James' business files. 10 days into this silence, my mother tried a new tactic. She appeared at my office without warning, tearful and solemn. Your father regrets what happened, she said softly, slipping into the chair across from me. He was just overwhelmed. You know how he gets about James. I didn't even look up from my screen. Worried about James? Or worried about what his investors will do when they learn where their funds really ended up? Her breath caught. I don't know what you're implying, she said, voice tight. Oh, really? I finally met her gaze. So you're unaware of the offshore transfers? The fake consulting fees to Dad's company? Or how James recycled pieces of my old source code in his sham crypto platform? She turned pale, fingers trembling. How do you know that? I'm very good at what I do, I said. You all assumed I wouldn't notice, that I wouldn't fight back. It wasn't a scam, she said weakly. He just made poor choices. No, Mom. Fraud isn't a poor choice. It's a felony. I spun my laptop around and let her see the compiled documents. Transaction records, shell corporations, code comparisons, and Dad helped him cover it up. She stared at the screen, speechless. What do you want? She finally whispered. I want peace. No more calls. No more guilt trips or flying monkeys. No more Anna's posts about loyalty and selfishness. The penthouse stays mine. You leave me alone. That's it. And if we don't? I gave her the same cold smile I wore when I walked out of that wedding. Then this goes to the SEC. And I'll make sure every investor knows exactly what happened, starting with a video of your husband slapping me in public. Her lips quivered. You'd destroy your own family? No, I said, folding the laptop shut. You destroyed it the moment you demanded I give up my home, the moment Dad hit me, and James smirked like he'd won. She left without saying another word. But I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. They'd get desperate before they gave up. Good. I still had one last move. That evening, I got a call. The luxury apartment complex by the ocean, the one James and Anna had been dreaming of renting in, was now mine. I'd bought the entire development. I logged into my private GitHub repo and pushed the final version of the property management platform I'd been building, a side project James had once tried to steal for his startup. A text lit up my screen. James, Mom told me what you're doing. You can't prove anything. I smiled and replied with a screenshot. His own server logs, clear as day. His response came fast. James, what do you want? Me, space. No contact. No favors. No obligations. My life and my penthouse are not up for debate. James, and if I say no, me, then I own the building you want to live in, I have digital proof of your fraud, and I'm ready to turn over everything to federal authorities. Your move. His typing bubble blinked, disappeared, returned, then vanished again. Finally, a message. James, you've changed. Me, no. I just stopped being the version of me you could control. I silenced my phone and stepped out onto my balcony. The skyline shimmered, and the last light of day dipped beneath the horizon. The family I once belonged to was gone, but for the first time in years, I felt light. Free. Sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't destroying the people who tried to break you. It's rising beyond them, and becoming the version of yourself they never believed you could be. 3 months later, I was sipping coffee in my penthouse, reviewing tenant applications for the seaside complex. The property was thriving, especially after integrating my custom management system. It was more than business. It was peace, and I'd earned every bit of it. A buzz from my phone broke the silence. A notification popped up. James and Anna had finally been evicted from their upscale rental. 2 months behind on rent. I didn't even blink. After I exposed the truth about their fraud, Dad's financial lifeline had dried up, leaving them to face a world they weren't ready for. Just as I set my phone down, a knock echoed from the front door. I glanced at the security feed. My father. He looked older, worn down. A flicker of hesitation hit me. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but curiosity won. I pressed the intercom. What do you want? 5 minutes, Victoria. That's all. I unlocked the door but didn't step aside to let him in. He hovered awkwardly, hands twitching, all the usual arrogance stripped from his posture. James and Anna are moving back home, he said. They finally gave up the apartment, I said flatly. They couldn't afford it. I know, I replied. I own the building. He looked stunned. You? Since when? Since I stopped pretending to be the girl you could control. I've always had the talent, you just chose not to see it. He leaned against the doorway, deflated. Your mother misses you. We all do. No, I said calmly. You miss having someone to manipulate, someone to sacrifice for James at every turn. That person's gone. His voice was low, heavy with regret. I was wrong. About all of it, the slap, the pressure, shielding James. I lost everything because of those choices. He wasn't exaggerating. My warning had forced him to resign from his company's board. His spotless public image was cracked beyond repair, and I never even had to publish the documents. The mere threat was enough. You didn't lose everything, I said coolly. James is still your pride and joy. Isn't that enough? Victoria, please. We're still family. A laugh escaped me, short, sharp. Family doesn't threaten to take your home. Family doesn't strike you in public, then pretend it never happened. And family definitely doesn't smirk while watching it unfold. He winced with each word. But I wasn't done. You know what I realized after the wedding? I've never needed you. Every win I've earned, every milestone, was in spite of your neglect, not because of your help. His shoulders slumped. I know. I see that now. He looked so diminished, like a figure I'd built up in my mind who no longer held power. Your 5 minutes are up, I said and began closing the door. Wait, he said quickly, pulling an envelope from his coat. Your mother, she asked me to give you this. It's an invitation to her birthday dinner next week. She'd really like you to come. I took it without a word and shut the door. Later that night, I sat outside on my balcony, watching city lights shimmer like stars scattered across the skyline. The envelope lay in my lap. A part of me wanted to toss it away, to maintain the firm boundary I'd finally drawn. But a deeper part knew that true strength wasn't in holding grudges, it was in choosing my responses freely. I decided to go. On her birthday, I arrived late and left early. I didn't speak much, just listened, observed. James and Anna sat stiffly, their designer threads replaced with off-the-rack humility. My father nursed a drink but stayed sober, choosing his words with care. My mother, on the other hand, overcompensated, her smile a fragile mask of hope. They all tiptoed around me like I was something sharp, something dangerous. And, in a way, I was. But I wasn't there to gloat. I was there on my own terms, wielding control not as a weapon, but as armor. The months that followed saw the start of a new rhythm. One shaped by respect, not guilt or obligation. James and Anna found basic jobs and settled into a modest home. My father remained at a distance, occasionally sending emails with vague business ideas. My mother was the slowest to adapt, clinging to some idealized version of me that never truly existed. But even she eventually saw who I was now, and accepted it. A year after the infamous wedding fallout, I hosted a quiet dinner party at my penthouse, not for family, but for the people who had stood by me through the storm. Mike from the coffee shop, who gave me a safe haven as I plotted my escape. My real estate agent, who believed in my vision and helped me lock down my investments. And my lawyer, who protected my interests with unshakable loyalty. We ate together on the balcony as dusk rolled in, painting the sky in molten gold. To Victoria, Mike said, raising his glass, who turned a slap into an empire. I smiled, not just at the words, but at the journey behind them. That one painful moment had sparked everything, not just wealth or power, but something far more valuable. The ability to live without fear, to set boundaries, and to finally become the person I was always meant to be. True revenge isn't always about retribution. Sometimes it's about rising, about healing, about finding peace. And sometimes it's about realizing that the people you choose to surround yourself with can be more family than the ones you were born to. I lifted my glass to meet the toast, feeling no bitterness, only closure. They had tried to take everything from me, but in doing so, they gave me something better: freedom. And no penthouse in the world could match that.